You have gone as far as you can go alone. Let's talk about it. Hey you guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Kobe Campbell. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor, trauma specialist, and I'm here to chit chat with you so we can heal and grow together. Today, I am talking about the fact that you have gone as far as you can go by yourself. You've gone as far as you can possibly go alone. And what does that mean? A lot of us are on our healing journey, and I think many of us have mastered what it means to heal separate of other people, heal in isolation, heal, stepping back, taking space. And that is a necessary part of healing. It really is. Stepping back gives us perspective about what our beliefs are because it gives us the opportunity to differentiate what are their views and what are my views. Am I just kind of like absorbing their views and their perspectives, their desires for my life, for my journey? So stepping away really does help us gain clarity when it comes to healing. Stepping away helps us understand. It's kind of like sorting out a closet. Like what stuff is mine and what stuff is someone else's. Like what stuff did I borrow a while ago and I forgot to give back? So let me separate. These are the things that I own. These are the things I bought, I paid for, I invested in. And these are the things that belong to someone else, but somehow ended up in my closet, right? I think that being alone, isolating, spending time away is necessary for a season because it helps you assess, like we just talked about. But to actually live out and embody healing, which is to experience it viscerally, requires that you're connected to people. And I think that some of us start the healing journey and we isolate and we overstay the season of isolation and then we fall right back to unhealth. We think that because it started in isolation, it finishes in isolation. And that's not true. Isolation is a part of the process that allows you to connect to other people and allows you to connect to yourself first. It prioritizes internal connection with yourself, and then the connection to other people should be secondary. So I think that it really does help us reorient because a lot of us have been taught to take care of others first. But the analogy, put your little mask on first and then someone else's. So isolation helps us take care of us first. But you stay in that isolation too long, you will end up in a perpetual cycle of needing to heal the exact same thing because I think being in isolation for too long can really wound you, right? We live out the principles that we have learned in isolation in relationship. Because relational pain is healed relationally. When we are hurt in relationship, we need corrective emotional experiences, which are experiences that correct the painful experiences we've had in the past through relationship. Now, in my last video, I talked about how relapse and making mistakes is a part of any change. And for many of us, we stepped back as one person, but we're re-engaging as a completely different person. So it's our first time embodying that version of ourselves, and it's that first time for other people to connect to that version of ourselves as well. So it can be incredibly vulnerable, incredibly lonely, incredibly just sensitive. I think sensitive is the best word. It's just very ooh, I feel everything. I sense everything because in that isolation, oftentimes many of us get curious. Why do I do this? When do I do this? Around who do I do this? And so when we re-engage, we can come back with a level of sensitivity that is helpful. It is good for us to have the sensitivity. But the reality is sometimes that sensitivity can make us want to run back to isolation because we're feeling everything in our relationships now. We're not numbed out. We're not living on autopilot. We're actually noticing and being honest with ourselves. Things that we may have just let pass by or slide under the rug. We are now stopping and saying, oh, that hurt. Oh, that person didn't consider me. Oh, that person didn't think about me. Oh, I don't like this dynamic in our relationship, right? So when we re-engage in relationship, it is an opportunity for us to apply the things we learned in isolation. And I think the space between learning and application is courage. Because it's scary. And nobody masters being courageous. If you've mastered being courageous in one thing, then there's another thing that real courage would require of you, right? I think a lot of us are living in this isolated world. I mean, I think, who was it? World Health Organization said that like loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, right? Imagine that in the pursuit of healing yourself, you're really killing yourself because you're prolonging a season that was only meant for a specific amount of time. And it's time for you to reintegrate into healthy and meaningful relationships. So let me say this. Healthy and meaningful relationships will have conflict. Why? Because conflict requires honesty. When you are in a healthy and meaningful relationship, there will be a point where you are frustrated with another person. I did a segment a while ago with a news organization about how couples that argue more have higher satisfaction rates. So couples that argue more have higher satisfaction rates because they're willing to be honest with each other and they're willing to present their needs to each other. And guess what? Closed mouths don't get fed. When you don't present your need, the need doesn't get met. Even if someone is frustrated by the how, the when, the what of the need, guess what? The need is presented, right? And so for many of us, we did relationship in a way where we were quiet, where we were meek, where we were pulled away, where we were timid, where we were afraid to say the things we need to say, and we're re-engaging as a clearer, bolder, yet more settled version of ourselves. And it's just gonna be weird. I wish I had like a better way to explain that. It's going to be weird. It's going to feel weird. And just because it feels weird doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just might mean you're doing something different, something you have not yet mastered. And that is okay if you have not yet mastered that, right? So I want to encourage you to reach out to somebody that you want to continue relationship with and spend time with them as the authentic self that you have been working to become, right? That's like your homework for this session. This is not therapy. Let me clarify that. This is not therapy, but you get the metaphor, right? But I also want to say this. I think one of the most underrated qualities of therapy that I love is that you get to practice being any version of yourself in a safe and contained environment. You get to practice being any version of yourself in a safe and contained environment, and you get to laugh at things you typically wouldn't laugh at. You get to cry when you feel moved to cry. You get to speak up. Like, I loved that about my therapy process, that I would say that to my therapist when she would ask me questions or processing things. I would say, you know, I would want to do this, but I would feel too scared. And she'd be like, okay, let's practice. So I'm this person, I just said da-da-da-da. And I'd be like, you know what? I don't like that you said that. And then I would really practice it. And then I'd be like, oh, that didn't feel good. How do I really want to say it? I would say it like this. And so when I came into real life connected moments, I didn't feel as nervous because I wasn't engaging as that authentic self for the first time in front of that person. I practiced in a safe environment where I could laugh, where I could fumble over my words, where I could cry, where I could be frustrated, where I could shake. Like, it didn't matter what I did because I was in that safe and trusting environment with a therapist who was legally and ethically bound to keep all my secrets, you know? And that is a gift. Even if you're paying for it, it's a gift. Most gifts have to be paid for anyways, you know, like it was a gift for me to be able to practice being the person I wanted to be, because it was terrifying to re-engage in relationship. And I see and sense that a lot with the people I work with and the people I serve through speaking engagements. It's like people want to be connected. Nobody is isolating because they genuinely feel like it's the best way to exist. If people could have safe and accepting connection, they would choose that over isolation any day. Most people are just afraid and exhausted of the work it takes to constantly explain why they've changed and who they are now. And I would even just sit down, instead of waiting for certain situations to come up, I would sit down with a loved friend and be like, hey, let's grab lunch, dinner, drink, whatever it is, and just say, I love you and I'm changing. And I wish I could tell you all the ways, but here are some of the ways I feel comfortable sharing with you right now. And I think that this will be helpful because I think that they might show up in ways that you're not used to. I've had to sit down with friends and say, I love you. I don't do that anymore. I love you. And I don't really want to talk about this anymore, right? It is very vulnerable because when you reintegrate in the world after you've learned some of the things that you needed for that season of isolation for healing, I just get an image of like a hatchling, like coming out, like just like teeny and tiny and raw and exposed. And that's what it feels like. A new version of you is emerging. And this new version of you needs community to emerge in its fullness. So this is me telling you, if you feel this in your gut, in your heart, this is for you. This is me telling you it's time for you to find your people. It is time for you to find your people. Okay. If you are looking for your people and you're like, I don't know where to find them, how do I find people who understand the process of all of this? Because the process of healing can be so personal that you're like, no one will get this. Guess what? There are people who get it, and there are people who feel the exact same way that you do. And that is why I partnered with Kinship. Kinship is a platform for authentic conversation and real connection. It's a place where people like me get to chat, share things about mental health and wellness. And other people like you get to listen and process what was talked about, process what was brought up, and you get a real way of building community around things that matter to you and principles that matter to you. If you want to build community and not have to pay a price, you can use the code KOBE, KOBE, and you can get 1 month for free in Kinship. That is 1 full month with the code KOBE, KOBE, and that is at ourkinship.com. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me for this chit chat. I hope it helped. If it did help you, put something in the comments and let me know. Talk to you soon.